So basically, we try to understand what actually power deals with, and we are actually identify automobile or IC engine, generally the powerhouse in the automobile. Once we understood the IC engine, obviously the remaining aspect of power production concept will be more easier for us. So we choose major part of the subject as a IC engine, and that is obviously IC engine have a great concern with the automobile. So very fast today we try to elaborate the what are the factor which is affected on the automobile vehicle, right? So that is first objective, and in the next part I will discuss about the factor which is affected on the engine part. So let's start with vehicle part first. See, as I already mentioned in previous lecture also, but let's revise little bit for the participant who are actually not able to attend in the last session. So basically the vehicle performance is purely depend on the three driving forces. See, what is the objective of to calculate this all driving forces? See, when we talked about the IC engine, that engine is actually specified with some power. That engine is actually convert that fuel energy into that mechanical power. So the size of the engine decide the amount of power which is generated by that particular IC engine. Now, which size of the engine is suitable for which size of vehicle or which kinds of vehicle is depend or decided by mean of calculating total resistance force which is experienced by that particular vehicle. Once we are getting the estimation what is the total resistance force of that particular vehicle, then it is easier to choose the engine size for that particular vehicle. So that is what actually objective. Now let's start. Any automobile vehicle experience this three resistance forces. First is air resistance, second one is rolling resistance, and third one is gradient resistance. Basically air resistance is because of the friction of air, because air is a viscous nature, a viscous fluid, and because of that viscous nature, that object moving in that particular fluid will always experience the resistance force called as a drag resistance or air resistance. Rolling resistance is obviously that automobile is made to roll over the flat road or road. So the contact between road and vehicle tire will create friction, that is created rolling resistance, and the slope will responsible for gradient resistance. Let's quickly look into one by one what actually air resistance, what actually rolling resistance and gradient resistance. The summation of this all three forces plus the velocity and acceleration will give you the inertia of that object because it is moving object. So this is what total force is required to make an automobile. Automobile, that means it is a moving vehicle. So this much forces you must have to estimate before installing the engine. Before installing the engine, that means because engine the prime objective of the engine is to drive the main shaft so that we are getting the motion. But when this engine power reach to that driving main shaft, there are several losses occurred that might be in the form of cooling losses, in the form of friction losses, in the form of the drag losses or rolling resistance, or some brake resistance or brake losses. So the point is actually whatever engine size you are deciding, that must be the greater than whatever losses you are accounted for. and then accordingly we have to identify the engine size. The aerodynamic resistance is significant after 100 km per hour, so we need to consider the aerodynamic resistance. When we talked about the aerodynamic resistance, we should have a little idea about the fluid mechanics, that is what boundary layer concept. So very quickly, let's look into the boundary layer concept. When fluids comes into contact, direct contact with solid object, that is the body, obviously at the vicinity of the surface, the velocity of that flow will remaining zero. The velocity of flow becomes zero. That condition is called as a no slip condition. This is the zero velocity case. When you move in the perpendicular direction from the surface, it is observed that the velocity is continuously increasing and there is a velocity gradient is observed. This is called as a velocity gradient, where at the vicinity of surface there is a zero velocity or there is no velocity. Then slowly, gradually, the velocity will rise and reach at the free stream velocity. That perpendicular distance or perpendicular height is referred as a boundary layer thickness. This is what here referred is. Now the point is actually, see, when you move along the length of the plate, definitely the boundary layer thickness will continuously increasing. After a certain point, the thickness, boundary layer thickness is remaining constant. So that point or that actual distance is actually referred as a fully developed length. Now, this is what actually how the boundary layer profile is look like. Now, due to any region, if flow will not able to stick with the surface, and then if by any kind of region, if that flow stream will try to separate it out from the surface, then it is that point is called as a separation point. And when that separation will happen, within the separation point, within the separation boundary layer, there is a negative pressure gradient is created. This is what we are interested in. In the normal boundary layer condition, there is a positive pressure gradient situation, but when there is a separation condition arise, the pressure gradient within the separation zone is a negative pressure zone, or it is called as a negative pressure gradient. Once we understood the boundary condition, boundary layer theorem, there is a very simple the concept of the drag and lift. Let's consider flow over sphere or flow over cylinder. I choose three different conditions. In very first diagram, this is the stationary cylinder. Initial three cylinder are very stationary. If let's say your flow is ideal flow don't have viscous nature. That means they don't have any friction between the two layer of fluid. So the ideal flow doesn't create any resistance, and because of that, the flow profile over the cylinder is look like this. It is very symmetric in the upper half as well as in the lower half. It is also symmetric in the leading edge as well as in the trailing edge. Now, if we look the pressure profile for that ideal flow condition, the pressure profile is shown in this red color arrow diagram. This is the pressure profile over the cylinder. When you look the pressure profile, it is very symmetric in nature, in the sense of the half side of the cylinder having this kind of pressure profile and having a mirror image in the later half side of that the symmetry of the pressure profile. It says that the pressure force acting in this horizontal direction is exactly equal to the pressure acting in this horizontal direction, and it is nullified if the flow pattern is very symmetric in front half and rear half. Then pressure force also very similar in the magnitude, and there is a no horizontal net force acting on the cylinder. But what happened when you are having a real flow? When you are having a real flow, the flow will sap because a real flow having a viscous nature, having a viscosity, and because of that viscosity, the flow will try to separate it after the after certain point. Because of separation, there is a different flow pattern observed in the rear back side. On the rear back side, the flow pattern is completely different than what actually appeared on the leading side. So because of different pressure, different flow pattern, there is a different pressure distribution. See, you look into the second diagram. This is the different pressure distribution. In the front end side, the pressure distribution is different than the rear end side. Because of different pressure distribution, there is a net pressure force will created in the direction of horizontal. In the horizontal direction, we are actually observed the net force because of different pressure profile we observed within this cylinder. And because that horizontal force is actually acting in the opposite direction to the motion of that object, will actually referred as a drag force. So point is, whenever you are having an unsymmetric flow profile, unsymmetric flow pattern in front and rear side, definitely it will lead to the drag force. That is one thing. It is only important in the automobile. This diagram is for the to understand for the lift force, the rotating cylinder. Suppose if the cylinder is rotating, so in that case, you are having a different flow profile in the front side as well as on the rear side. So definitely there should be a drag force. In the addition, if you look in the upper half section and lower half section, the flow profile will be completely different. The flow profile in the upper half section is very nearer than the on the lower half side, bottom portion. So because of that, upper and lower side, different flow pattern will lead to different pressure profile, and which will actually region for the vertical net force, which is called as a lift force. So once you understood the drag, how that drag comes into picture, then definitely the idea behind the drag force is which are the parameters on which that drag force or the drag resistance will depend upon. So definitely the drag force, the people are conducting various experiment to find out on which parameter this drag forces actually depend on. So they found that the drag force is directly proportional to the density of fluid, the cross-sectional area of that is projected area of vehicle or object, the square velocity, the flow velocity square of the flow velocity, and there is a one constant that is also depend on the flow that is the profile of the body will decide this constant that is called as a drag coefficient. Let's look into that. CD stands for drag coefficient density. That is obviously, if it is air, then air density. If it is a water, then water density. Area, capital A stands for projected area, and V is the velocity of that object. Now see, this is the three parameter on which the drag force. First is obviously square of the velocity. So definitely, if it is a lower velocity, then drag force will be lower. It is directly proportional to velocity. If it's the projected area means this is the projected area we referred as. This is how projected area is look like. So the projected area you have to consider, that is the cut section area or cross section area through which the air is actually cutting the particular object. So that is it is proportionally depend on the larger cut sectional area will lead to larger drag force. One parameter which is very important, that is drag coefficient. Now see, drag coefficient is depending on the shape, generally the shape of the object. Here some data for the drag coefficient value is given to you for have some idea. Suppose if it is a vertical flat plate, so that if flow is moving from left to right, that vertical flat plate could be have a drag coefficient in the range of 1.28, let's say. If that the projected area is almost similar for all case. If it is a flat plate, if it is a prism, or if it is a bullet, let's say. But you look into that, if the bullet having a blunt round shape, even though with similar projected area, the drag coefficient is in the range of 0.23 or 0.3. So it is drastically drag will reduce to, it is purely depend on the shape of that object. Even if you modified that shape in the streamline pattern, this is called as aerofoil pattern, streamline object. So that streamline object having a least amount of drag value, drag coefficient value, that is in the range of 0.05, in the range of 0.05. The idea to show this all picture is, see, this total drag force is directly depend on the drag coefficient, density, but density definitely not in our hand. The velocity, that is also not in our hand. Definitely we all wish to cruise our vehicle with maximum possible velocity. So definitely velocity, we cannot restrict velocity. Projected area, yes, we can reduce the projected area a little bit, but definitely if it is a passenger vehicle or if it is a cargo vehicle, definitely once you reduce the cross sectional area, then ultimately you will suffer the total volume capacity, which is useful for the transportation. So we cannot reduce that up to after certain limit. So area is also not in our hand. So how can you reduce the total resistance force? By carefully designed your object shape or vehicle shape, so that your drag coefficient will be minimum. That is what the outcome. Now that drag coefficient ultimately depend on the two particular factor. It is because of two particular. One is obviously there is a because of pressure difference, we are having a drag that is called as a pressure drag. One more thing, because of surface roughness, whatever resistance experienced by that flow is called as a skin friction drag. The summation of this two is actually called as a total drag, and based on total drag, we are actually able to calculate the drag coefficient. So this is how drag coefficient is depending on the that is pressure drag and skin friction drag. Accordingly, you have to optimize the drag coefficient. As see, this is a simple diagram will give you understanding how the drag coefficient evolved throughout the year. It is in the 1920, obviously before 100 years, the all car or automobile vehicle having the drag in the range of 0.8 or it is almost equal to 1. But now, due to careful aerodynamic design, it landed or it is reduced up to 0.2 or 0.1. It is still below this value, but roughly today the drag coefficient having a value in the range of 0.3, which is previously it was in the range of 0.9 or 1. So this is how through proper aerodynamic design we can actually reduce the aerodynamic drag drastically. What mean by aerodynamic design, or which are the parameters on which this drag coefficient is depending? So definitely the tractor design, trailer design. Tractor, that means the front end component which will pull the backside trolley. So definitely the design of that is also important. Trailer design, that is also important. The gap between tractor trailer is having a role in the drag coefficient. Even though nowadays, if you look carefully, the car design, whatever car nowadays comes into market, having a very smooth finished the mirrors or deflector or light beam. So that is they pay attention on that particular appendage to reduce the aerodynamic drag only. There is no other reason for that. There are also environmental property or environmental influence, that is either density, pressure, or wind speed. or even the turbulent intensity, but still that environmental concern is not in our hand. Uh, this is what we can design, that is tractor trailer design, the gap between tractor trailer and the outer body, the accessories that we can actually design carefully so that our drag coefficient will be minimum at least. So once we understood the aerodynamic drag, the next resistance is called as the rolling resistance. I mentioned that rolling resistance is once you start to roll your vehicle, or once you start to move your vehicle, definitely the friction between your tire and road is initiating. Once the friction is initiating, they must have a contribution, they must contribute in the rolling resistance. This rolling resistance roughly have expression is given like this. The rolling resistance is Rxf, that is a rolling resistance in the forward tire, rolling resistance of backward tire. The total rolling resistance of forward tire and total rolling resistance of rear tire. And that forward tire and rear tire, ultimately that rolling resistance is directly proportional to that weight of the vehicle multiplication of the friction factor, that is rolling resistance factor. This is Fr is actually called as a rolling resistance factor. This is the empirical equation which will give you total rolling resistance. So directly see, it only depend on the weight of the vehicle. See, it significantly depend on the weight of the vehicle. The higher the weight, obviously the higher the rolling resistance. This Fr is something like constant, like in the aerodynamic resistance there is a drag coefficient. In the similar fashion, this Fr is actually a rolling resistance coefficient. So on which this rolling resistance coefficient, that we can decide that this weight is not in our hand. We cannot fix the weight. That is absolutely, we can reduce weight up to certain limit, but after that limit we are that is not in our hand actually. So which is the parameter which we can optimize? This is the this rolling resistance coefficient. This parameter we can fixed, or we can optimize. On which this rolling resistance parameter is depending? So definitely it is depending on the design of tire. So design of tire, this is the entire field. We are not going to go into depth, but tire design, see tire design related with the what is the temperature of tire, what is the pressure of that tire, what is the material used to make that tire, or what is the smoothness, or what is the slip factor actually, the smoothness. See, the tire must not be very smooth. Why? If you provide completely smooth tire, then definitely there will be a slip issue. Your tire will be skid or slip over the surface. So that is also not advisable. You must have certain friction by providing little roughness, or what we can say, by providing some slip factor, you can create the friction between road and tire. So that is also essential. See, but you can reduce what you can actually. So accordingly, this diagram will give you little idea. This is the slip angle. That is what actually slip factor. See, this is the street tire. The street tire having a least slip factor, green color, and having a least coefficient of friction. Whatever tire we are using at obviously at our obviously normal automobile are come with this kind of tire design, which will have not flat surfaced, but definitely they have some angle, the tire angle with the road. Definitely this is the angle with the road, that is slip angle. But if you look into the Formula 1 racing car, if you look carefully, if you remember that the tire used in Formula 1, that seems very flat surface. So that flat surface, having a flat surface, that means having a lower slip angle. By providing a lower slip angle, actually you are providing much larger contact surface between road and tire. Once you are having a larger contact surface, definitely you will landed with larger coefficient of friction. Now this is the question to you: why they people are actually using high friction of coefficient tire? That is, you have to think about that and then put your answer into discussion forum. Now this is what the slip angle slip angle decide the coefficient of rolling friction, as well as your car tire pressure will also decide the coefficient of a rolling resistance. As you are increasing your car tire pressure, the flatness will be increasing, as flatness of the tire will decreasing, and in the same fashion the rolling resistance will decreasing. You look into this diagram, from 1 bar pressure the rolling resistance coefficient is larger. When you landed with 4 bar of pressure, it is almost 3 times reduced when you increase your tire pressure 4 times. So higher the car tire pressure will lead you smaller the rolling resistance coefficient, because obviously with higher tire pressure there must be a less contact contact between road and the tire. That is what reason behind that. Finally, this third parameter, third resistance, called as a gradient resistance, and that gradient resistance comes into picture when you are actually your automobile is cruising on hilly area. When there is a slope, due to additional slope, what happen actually? See, when automobile is cruising on the slope, definitely this is the weight acting downward direction. But when it is moving in this direction, that means in inclined direction, definitely one of the weight component is actually oppose the motion of that vehicle. It is in the direction of, in the opposite direction of the motion. The component of the weight, that is W sine theta. This W sine theta will actually in the opposite direction of the vehicle motion. So that opposite direction component of that weight is ultimately referred as a gradient resistance. That is given, that is straightforward. It is given that weight is height by this is this is height into length will give you that sine theta component and multiplication with the W. So obviously higher the slope, definitely larger the gradient resistance. That is simple philosophy. So this gradient resistance always present when you are actually cruising in the hilly area, or where you are having a slope on that. So this three component which is actually responsible for the total resistance of any automobile vehicle which is actually moving on the road. That is air resistance, rolling resistance, and because of slope, the grade resistance is present. Now, so this will give you total resistance force, and that total resistance force is actually referred as a tractive effort. This is the effort you required to tractive your automobile. So that is called as a tractive effort or tractive resistance. How it will behave with the velocity? Definitely, you look into the line A. A represent for the rolling resistance. This A or rolling resistance is always constant with the velocity. It doesn't change at all with respect to velocity, and it is always present. Once you start your vehicle, it is always present. The B, B, the curve B will represent the air resistance. As and when your speed will increasing, your velocity will increasing, the air resistance initially linearly increasing, then the behavior is quadratically increasing in this fashion. This is what the rolling resistance, sorry, this is what the air resistance. And C, C is obviously tends for gradient resistance. If you are actually moving in the hilly area, so that is not again depend on the velocity. See that gradient resistance is not depend on the velocity at all. It is depend on the weight itself, like rolling resistance. So it is present when your vehicle will start to move. It is always present in the hilly area. So it is almost constant. So you are having a plus B plus C. So when you add that all resistance, you will getting total tractive effort with respect to velocity. As you have higher velocity, you require higher tractive force, or you are experiencing the higher tractive resistance. This is what the tractive resistance experience or tractive resistance curves look like. Now, once you calculate this tractive resistance, because you must have to calculate uh, uh, to ensure which size of engine you should fit in that particular vehicle, because the engine, see, this is the engine characteristics. What is the characteristics of engine? The power produced by engine is obviously the generally it is given by 2 pi nt by 60. The shaft power is 2 pi nt by 60, or it is obviously power proportional to power is directly proportional to the 2 pi n, that is the rpm. Obviously initially it is continuously because it is linearly proportional to the rpm. It have a one peak, then it is continuously decreasing. Now based on that, what is the torque relation? Obviously torque is directly because P is equal to 2 pi nt by 60. In that way, torque is directly proportional to power output, and indirectly proportional or inversely proportional to that RPM. So what is the behavior of torque? That because we are interested in torque ultimately. See, torque is one kind of force or effort which is actually produced by the engine. So better than power, it is torque will give you better assessment. So within the RPM, with the RPM increasing, because power output is increasing, the torque will increasing. But at certain point, because torque is also depend on the inversely depend on the rotation, so RPM. So at after one particular point of time, this rotation term will dominating, and because of that dominating term, as RPM increasing, the torque will decreasing. So this is how the torque behave with RPM. Initially it is increasing, and after certain speed it will decreasing. This is how the torque RPM curves look like. So this is the first gear torque RPM curve. Torque initially increasing, then it will fall down. This is curves only for the first gear. When you are actually having a first gear ratio at that time, this is the behavior, this is the nature of torque with respect to RPM. When you switch over to second gear, that second gear having some minimum and maximum RPM ratio, that second gear having some minimum and having some maximum RPM range. Within that range, this is the torque nature for the second gear. Similarly for the third gear, similarly for the fourth gear. Now what is the purpose to explain this whole torque relation? You look into this peak diagram. See, when you are in the first gear, definitely this is the peak torque, the maximum torque you will getting. Let's move to the second gear. This is the maximum torque which you are getting at this point. In the third gear, this is, let's say, this is the maximum torque which we are actually able to produce, and this is the fourth gear, in which this is the maximum amount of torque which we are able to produce. Now when you join this all line, will give you maximum power output of that particular engine. See, this line will give you idea about your engine, what your engine will produce maximum at which RPM. So this is the rough estimation. With respect to RPM, your engine will have a this much amount of maximum power production or maximum torque production. That is what actually we refer as a tractive force or tractive power. So this is tractive power which we are having. This is what actually tractive power we have with that particular engine. And you will recall that resistance, that is what actually tractive resistance. This dashed line is actually tractive resistance that we already derived. This is the tractive resistance, which is linearly initially have such some values, and it is continuously increasing with respect to speed or with respect to RPM. Let's say the behavior is very similar, only the magnitude will change. If it is a speed or if it is RPM, we can convert the RPM in the speed. That is not an issue. But the objective is what? This is the power required, we can say, the power required for vehicle, and this is the power available for the vehicle. The point is, when you let's say you are in the first gear. So in the first gear, this if you draw the vertical line, so this much of excessive power, this is the power available graph, and this is the dashed line is represent the power required line. The this vertical this whole this entire region is actually the excessive power which is used to cruise our particular vehicle. See, if it is in first gear, definitely this is the excessive power we are having. If you just draw the vertical line, so this much of excessive power we have. If you look into the second gear, draw the vertical line from this point to this point. This is the maximum power available in the second gear. If it is a third gear, then draw the vertical line from this point to this point. This is the power available, excessive power available. Where that excessive power will used for, obviously, to get a velocity, to get the inertia, obviously, to get a acceleration. And if it is a fourth gear, then definitely this is the excessive power available with us. So in the fourth gear, very small excessive power available with us, and that's why when you put your vehicle in the first gear, definitely your pickup, what we can say, the acceleration, we experience the large acceleration or large pickup power within the first gear. That is because in the first gear, the excessive power, the slot is a very wide range. So now this is what actually similar idea. This is what power available, the red color line indicating power available with that particular engine, this blue color line indicating power required. If your slope will continuously increasing, then power required is also continuously increasing. If you are moving with hilly area where the slope is continuously increasing, then what will you experience? When the hill or when the slope will reach at some larger value, then definitely your power required curve will switch over to this height. So in that case, your power availability, excessive power availability will narrow down. That's why we are feel the lack of power when we drive in the hilly area. So that is how the correlated the power availability and power required. You must have to calculate power required. What is the power required to run particular size of vehicle initially? Then once you calculate that power required, then you can actually install your engine, which have a some the characteristic which is will give you excessive power to cruise, definitely.